I want to talk about one that probably isn't as competitive, LAT versus Boston, the 1 versus 8. But we should mention that Boston upset LA Thieves in the first round of the second major of this season. I think we had literally talked probably verbatim about how Boston has no chance to beat LAT in the first round of that tournament, and they come out and they upset them. Of course, LAT ends up bouncing back in Major 3 and Major 4, winning both of those events. Boston has struggled to find any sort of real consistency this season, but like we said many times during the season, making champs is an accomplishment for Boston. For that team that was by far the worst team in the entire league last year, for them to get here, that is a really big moment for their franchise. However, I think we're both going to pick LAT. Is there how what would you say is like the percentage that you would give Boston that they'll be able to pull off another upset against the Thieves at champs?
I yeah, I mean,
Was it like 5% that they pulled off? Is it 2%?
I can't say 0%, right? Because it has happened this year, and that's really like where my thought process is. Um, with this matchup, like it's 2-2 on the year, which if I blindly had to guess, obviously I know that Boston has beaten Thieves this year, but I would not have like just blindly guessed that it was a 2-2 overall record. I again that was just one of these things I was doing the notes. I was like, wow, that doesn't seem right, but I guess at the end of the day, it does make sense. So yeah, back to your question. I mean, it's not 0% chance of Boston pulling off an upset. There has to be at least 1% chance. But just the way LAT have been playing over these last couple months, back to back major champions, I think in most people's eyes, the undisputed best team in the game right now. And if for whatever reason they aren't the best undefeated team or undisputed best team, they're like 1B to 1A. So really like it is kind of a dangerous situation to be in. I just in the sense of like if everybody, if the majority of people are banking on Thieves or expecting Thieves to win this event, then like they only have stuff to lose, really. Like like the pressure's on, and at least some of these guys like Hydra and uh Envoy have been here before, have rings and have done it, so it's not totally unfamiliar or uncharted waters, unfamiliar territory, whatever. But yeah, I just think like the way LAT have been playing lately, you gotta heavily favor them in this matchup, but it is at the same time like this is kind of what I was thinking with Minnesota Rocker. This is going to be a weird, maybe for some people who haven't listened to all the episodes and stuff. But my whole thing with the Rocker earlier this year, they were going through all those reps of forcing reverse sweeps and or forcing game fives and getting reverse sweeps, or they were forcing the game fives and then losing the game fives. But they were getting a ton of reps. They were going down 0-2 and they were fighting back. And I was saying like if this team gets to these situations later in the season, the early reps can pay dividends because they know they've been able to get to a game five. They know they've been able to pull off reverse sweeps. And obviously it didn't work out for Minnesota. They make roster changes and that narrative still continues, but they don't make champs. On a smaller scale, like Boston comes into this matchup, heavy underdogs in most people's eyes, but they know in the back of their heads they've had this squad since last year's EWC. They know they have beaten this team they're playing against multiple times since this roster's been together, and it's the same rosters on both sides, no changes. Like so they know they can do it. It's just going to be a matter of fact of putting the pieces together and actually making magic happen at champs. Like no other real way to say it. I don't think many people are expecting Boston to make that magic happen, but they have done it before, so it's not impossible. End of the day, I do think this is probably a 3-0 for LAT. Maybe Boston steals a map, but I would be very surprised if this goes to a game five, let alone if Boston wins.
Yeah, I believe Boston's best game mode is hardpoint, and they're not like a overwhelming favorite in that game mode against most teams, but particularly not going to be against LAT, which is the best, second best, third best. Like they're not escaping the top three in terms of top hard point teams. So it's going to be really difficult for Boston to pull that off. But I thought you brought up a great point, and that's these are two teams, two of the maybe four teams I think in the league that did not make a roster change at any point this season. And I believe Boston is only one of two teams in the entire league not to make a roster change after EWC last year, because LAT brought in this whole new roster. Obviously, we're that was a good move. We both agreed that they created a super team basically overnight with the signings that they made in the offseason and bringing in Scrap and bringing in Hydra and everything. But Boston has a ton of chemistry, and I don't think that can be understated. And I think it's really the key reason that they were able to make it to champs in the first place. They are not the most talented team in the world. No one is going to mistake that. No one, like, I think Snoopy has by far the most talent of these four players, but he has his flaws, as has been pointed out multiple times in multiple different places. These are other than Snoopy, though, they're all players that have been dropped multiple times. I think Purge only been dropped technically once, but he was much maligned before he got dropped the one time with the Vegas Legion. But everybody else has been on multiple teams in the CDL, have been really doubted, and they've seemingly found something with Boston, not a championship contender, but a champs team, which is not something that I think a lot of people predicted for the Boston Breach this season. And so they've had so much time to practice with each other, not only over the last month, but they've been together for what a full year now. It feels like I'm trying to look up when Cammy and them came in. So they came in technically in July
That's what I was gonna
22nd.
say. I was
So
gonna say July.
so literally 11 months from today, they formed. They've been practicing. They've done some really incredible things, like we mentioned, beating LAT on LAN. They have pulled off a few upsets. They beat Optic Texas at the beginning of the season, which of course was more so like probably a harbinger of what was going to come with Optic rather than what happened with Boston. But they were still able to do that. They've, like you said, they forced a lot of game fives. They've been able to be really competitive with a lot of these teams, even if they don't win. I hope that's the case here. Like I don't. I'm not going to root for either one of them. I do. I think it would be an incredible story if the Boston Breach won, but I don't expect them to do that. I would just like it to be competitive. I don't want it to be like a LAT versus Carolina matchup where it's a 25-minute match and we're just kind of moving on with our day after it. I would like Boston, even though they will get a second match, they will be able to kind of redeem themselves if they do get bounced really quickly. I would just like to see them have this kind of moment of like win a map or two against probably the best team or the second best team in the league at champs, and then go down the losers bracket, really try to make a run from there. But yeah, I'm going to be going with LAT. There's just I don't think anybody really should be picking Boston in this matchup.